Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified. Here we will take up the news articles from The Hindu Delhi edition and discuss them as per the demands of UPSC Civil Services exam. The topics for today's discussion are listed on your screen. Let us begin our discussion. Today we will be starting our discussion from this case study, and it has appeared in 2021 mains exam. An elevated corridor is being constructed to reduce traffic congestion in the capital of a particular state. You have been selected as a project manager of this prestigious project on your professional competence and experience, and the deadline is to complete the project in the next 2 years by 30th June 2021. Since this project is to be inaugurated by Chief Minister before the elections are announced in the second week of July 2021. While carrying out the surprise inspection by inspecting team, a minor crack was noticed in one of the piers of the elevated corridor, possibly due to poor material used. You immediately informed the chief engineer and stopped further work. It was assessed by you that minimum 3 piers of elevated corridor have to be demolished and reconstructed. But this process will delay the project minimum by 4 to 6 months. But the chief engineer overruled the observation of inspecting team on the ground that it was a minor crack which will not in any way impact the strength and durability of the bridge. He ordered you to overlook the observation of inspecting team and continue working with the same speed and tempo. He informed you that minister does not want any delay as he wants the chief minister to inaugurate the elevated corridor before the elections are declared. He also informed you that contractor is a far relative of minister and he wants him to finish the project. He also gave you a hint that your further promotion as additional chief engineer is under consideration with the ministry. However, you strongly felt that minor crack in the pier of elevated corridor will adversely affect the health and life of the bridge, and therefore it will be very dangerous not to repair the elevated corridor. And there are 4 questions asked in this particular case study. The first one is, under the given conditions, what are the options available to you as a project manager? The second one is, what are the ethical dilemmas being faced by project manager? What are the professional challenges likely to be faced by project manager and his response to overcome such challenges? And the last one is, what can be the consequences of overlooking the observation raised by inspecting team? Now, before solving this case study, let us try to understand how you should approach the case studies. First of all, what does it test? The case studies tests the decision-making ability of a candidate and the ethical reasoning which you will be providing for your options and the course of action. It also tests the aptitude of candidates for civil services and a thought process of a candidate in a way how they will take the decision in a step-by-step approach. Now, these are the broad parameters that you should keep in mind while solving the case study. The first one is, read and understand the case to identify issues and dilemmas. Further, you need to consider all the stakeholders and their concerns. Then you should try to figure out the broad issues such as national security, violation of constitutional principles, and societal values. You need to focus on the keywords such as the character of officer, like honesty, integrity. You need to take an overview to figure out the systemic issues, and that is the crux of the case. And you also need to keep an eye on the peripheral issues so that you should address all the issues holistically. And one most important thing which you should keep in mind, never take illegal or short-term option, whatever the case may be, which means you always need to take an ethical course of action. You need to identify the areas where the immediate action is required so that you address all the issues in a proper manner. And you also need to show your faith in justice, government, public, and ethical values. And lastly, there should be no injustice to anyone at all. And you can also apply the ethical theories such as categorical imperative of Immanuel Kant. Now let us try to solve this case study. The first question says, under given conditions, what are the options available to you as a project manager? The first option is investigation of the matter. Now it is of the utmost importance to carry out a comprehensive investigation to ascertain the underlying factors which contribute to the incident and to assign accountability appropriately. And there is a need to engage professionals who have expertise in structural engineering to identify the shortcomings in the construction process. The second option is follow the hierarchy. Now it is essential to adhere the established chain of command and report the issue to higher authorities. By following the hierarchy, we ensure that the right people are informed about the situation and can take appropriate actions to address it effectively. And the third one is engage an independent expert. The project manager can take the proactive step of engaging an independent expert, or we can also look for third party assessment, which will be conducting a thorough inspection of the observed crack. And this measure is aimed at obtaining an unbiased and impartial assessment of the issue at hand. And this approach demonstrates the project manager's commitment to upholding the professional standards and prioritizing the safety and reliability of bridge for the benefit of public. Hence, these are the three options which are available before you. You can also add options as per your understanding or modify these options as per your convenience. Now we will address the second question, which talks about the ethical dilemmas faced by a project manager. The first dilemma is safety versus the cost of project. The ethical dilemma here revolves around balancing the safety of elevated corridor and the cost of project. And to ensure the highest level of standards, it requires additional investments which could potentially increase the project cost. And on the other hand, compromising on safety to complete the project on time may lead to long-term consequences and safety risks. The second one is professional ethics versus hierarchy. This dilemma involves upholding professional ethics and integrity in decision making, even when facing the pressure from higher authorities within the organization. And in this case, the project manager may encounter a situation where his ethical principles clashes with the directives from superiors. The third one is means versus ends. In this case, the project manager might face pressure to complete the elevated corridor before elections, which will potentially compromise the quality and safety to meet the deadline. So, the means in this case is compromising the quality and safety to achieve the end of completing the project on time, and balancing the desire for successful project inauguration with ethical means can be challenging. And in this particular point, you can mention the deontological approach of Immanuel Kant, which talks about the right actions which one should follow irrespective of the consequences or outcome. And lastly, public interest versus personal career. In this particular case, the manager is facing a dilemma between prioritizing the safety of the elevated corridor and to safeguard his future opportunities and career prospects. And upholding public safety might lead to delays, which results into conflicts with influential stakeholders or even potential threats to managers' future prospects, and may compromise the future prospects of manager. So here we have discussed 4 ethical dilemmas with respect to this particular case. Now we will move on to the next question, which talks about the professional challenges which are likely to be faced by project manager. Now the professional challenges which are likely to be faced by project manager and his response to overcome such challenges. The first one is navigating political pressures. The project manager will need to find ways to communicate the importance of addressing the cracks issue without challenging the higher authority. Hence, it is an important professional challenge which is likely to be faced by the project manager. And what could be his response? There is a need of effective communication and data-backed evidence to convey the seriousness of the matter. This response can be suitable to address this particular challenge. The second one is overcoming the potential resistance. The project manager may encounter resistance from chief engineer and other stakeholders who are involved in this particular project and who wants the completion of project over the safety. And a suitable response to address this challenge, manager needs to persistently advocate for the correct course of action and engage in open dialogue with all the parties involved. The third challenge is maintaining the morale of inspection team. Due to the pressure and insistence by higher authorities regarding the completion of project, the inspecting team might be demotivated that their efforts and work is not recognized. And to address this challenge, the manager must ensure that the inspecting team feels supported and valued. And the manager should regularly communicate with the inspecting team, acknowledge their contributions, and express gratitude for their diligent work in ensuring the safety and quality of project. And lastly, the cost overrun and delay. Balancing safety requirements and budget constraints can be a challenging task, and the project manager must carefully plan and manage resources to avoid the cost overrun while ensuring the safety measures are implemented effectively. And a suitable response to this challenge can be manager can propose revised timelines for the completion of project by communicating the accurate reasons for delay and the steps which are taken for the resolution. Here we have discussed the challenges and the response which can be undertaken to address the challenges. Now we will move to the last question of this case study, which says what can be the consequences of overlooking the observation raised by inspecting team. The first consequence can be safety risks. Ignoring the minor crack could lead to serious consequences such as structural failure or collapse of elevated corridor, which can result into loss of life and public property. And the second consequence can be with respect to the organization, and it is the damage to reputation of the organization. If in future a major incident occurs due to the overlooked crack, it could tarnish the image of the organization and the people who are involved in this particular project, such as the project manager, chief engineer, and the inspecting team. It can be a serious consequence for the organization. The third one is legal ramifications. The project manager and other responsible parties could face legal consequences, including possible lawsuits and investigations for neglecting safety concerns and compromising the integrity of the project. And lastly, erosion of public trust. Failure to prioritize safety over completion of the project may result in loss of public trust in the organization's ability to carry out projects responsibly and with integrity. It can be a serious consequence for overlooking the observations raised by inspecting team. And lastly, what can be the conclusion to address such issues? The solution to this particular issue includes three parts. And the first part says internal audit system. Establishing an internal audit system within the organization allows for regular and objective evaluation for the project, and it also ensures compliance with safety standards and adherence to ethical practices. Further, the internal auditors can assess the project's performance and identify the potential risks which are associated with particular project. And the regular internal audits can help in preventing the lapses in safety and quality by detecting issues at early stage. The second part of the solution is third-party assessment. Incorporating third-party assessment provides an independent and unbiased evaluation of the project. And the third-party experts can offer valuable insights and validate that the project adheres to the established engineering standards and safety regulations. And their involvement will increase the transparency in the system. And the last part of the solution is quality control mechanism. Implementing a robust quality control mechanism involves monitoring and inspecting each phase of the construction process in order to ensure safety protocols and quality standards are consistently met. And a well implemented quality control mechanism fosters a culture of continuous improvement. And to conclude your answer, you can mention that by integrating these systemic reforms into project management practices, the organization can enhance its ability to deliver safe and high quality projects. Moving on to the next topic of today's discussion, which is based on this news, which featured at page number 4 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the minimum income guarantee bill, which was introduced by Rajasthan. The concept of minimum income is related to the universal basic income, which guarantees the minimum income to all the individuals residing in the country. This topic is relevant under General Studies paper 2, in which welfare schemes for vulnerable section of population by state and center is mentioned. And in today's discussion, we will try to analyze the major provisions of this particular bill and the benefits of minimum income guarantee. And Rajasthan government has tabled this particular bill to cover the entire adult population of state with guaranteed wages or pension. Let us try to have a look at the major provisions of the bill. The first one is minimum guaranteed income. The Rajasthan government's flagship programs such as Indira Gandhi Shahri Rozgar Yojana for urban areas and Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which is also known as Manrega, for rural areas have ensured that each adult citizen in state receive a minimum income of 125 days annually. The government is increasing the employment guarantee from 100 days to 125 days per family. Further, the state will also complement Manrega's 100 days by offering employment opportunities for an extra 25 days in rural regions. So, both in urban and rural areas, every adult person will be provided with a guaranteed 125 days of employment. And the second major provision is guaranteed employment. As per the right to employment, after participating in urban or rural employment schemes, workers must be paid their minimum wages on weekly basis or within a fortnight. And who will be responsible to implement this particular act? The state government will appoint a designated program officer who will hold the position of at least block development officer in rural areas or an executive officer of the local body in urban areas. And one of the primary responsibility of the program officer is to ensure that the work site is situated within 5 km radius of where the job card is registered. And further, if no employment is provided within 15 days, a person will be entitled for unemployment allowance. Hence, the government has introduced the provision of unemployment allowance in urban areas also. And the third major provision is guaranteed social security pension. And the bill ensures that individuals who are falling into the category of aged, differently abled, widows or single women will be entitled to receive a monthly pension, and this pension amount will also see an incremental increase over the base rate, and that is 15% annual increment will be provided to the pensioners. It is an important welfare scheme to ensure the minimum income to all the adult people in the state. Now we will discuss what are the benefits of the minimum income guarantee. The first one is poverty reduction. One of the primary objectives of minimum income guarantee is to reduce poverty. By providing a basic level of income to all the residents of state, the most vulnerable and economically disadvantaged individuals can be lifted out of poverty. So it is an important benefit of minimum income guarantee. The second one is financial security and stability. A minimum income guarantee can provide a safety net for the individuals who are facing economic uncertainty such as job loss, illness or economic downturns. And this financial stability can also lead to better health, reduced stress and a sense of security to every individual who is residing in the state. The third one is reduced income inequality. The minimum income guarantee can help in narrowing the gap between rich and the poor by addressing the income inequality and promoting a more equitable society. And this can further foster social cohesion and reduce the tensions arising out of economic disparities. The fourth benefit is administrative efficiency. A minimum income guarantee can be more administratively efficient than a targeted welfare scheme, which often involves complex eligibility criteria and high administrative cost. And it will also eliminate the issues of inclusion and exclusion errors. And the last point in this section is stimulating the economy. By providing additional spending power to lower income individuals, minimum income guarantee can boost the consumer demand and stimulate the economic growth, which results into increased economic activity and job creation. In this way, the minimum income guarantee benefits the society in different ways. Moving on to the next topic of today's discussion, which is based on this news, which featured at page number 6 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the Indus Water Treaty. And the context is that if India and Pakistan incorporates two cardinal principles, that is equitable and reasonable utilization and no harm rule, then it will reduce the tension between the two countries. The Indus Water Treaty, which was signed in 1960, regulates the Indus water courses between the two riparian states of India and Pakistan. This topic is important for General Studies Paper 2, in which India and its neighborhood relations have mentioned. And every year, UPSC asks at least one question in mains exam on India's neighborhood and its policies. So, in today's discussion, we will try to analyze the recent developments which are happening with respect to Indus Water Treaty. In recent times, exercising judicial recourse to settle the competing claims and objections which are arising out of construction and design elements of the run-of-river hydroelectric projects which India is permitted under Indus Water Treaty to construct on the tributaries of Indus, Jhelum and Chenab has increased. Further, Pakistan initiated arbitration at the Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration to address the interpretation and application of Indus Water Treaty with respect to the run-of-river hydroelectric projects on Kishanganga River. And in response to that, India has raised objections as the Court of Arbitration is not competent to consider the questions which are raised by Pakistan, and instead of that, such issues should be decided through neutral expert process. And lastly, the Permanent Court of Arbitration unanimously passed a decision rejecting each of India's objections, and court determined that it is competent enough to determine and consider the disputes which have been raised by Pakistan for arbitration. These were the recent developments with respect to Indus Water Treaty. Now we will try to understand what are the issues associated with Indus Water Treaty. The first one is it prevents storage. Under the provisions of treaty, only the run of the river projects are allowed, and it prevents the storage projects by India that was even highlighted by the Parliamentary Committee. This is one of the major issues with regard to Indus Water Treaty. The second issue is technical in nature. Indus Water Treaty is highly technical in nature, which leads to different interpretation among the countries. And due to that, there have been many disputes between India and Pakistan related to different projects constructed over Indus Water River and its tributaries. Further, there is a high level of political mistrust between India and Pakistan which has historical underpinnings. The fourth one is underutilization. The Parliamentary Committee has also said that India has underutilized the water of western rivers for irrigation purpose, though India is legally permissible to do that under the treaty. The fifth one is related to data sharing. Within Indus Water Treaty, there is an absence of data sharing mechanism, and due to that particular reason, there are many disputes between India and Pakistan related to this particular treaty. The sixth one is emerging issues. The treaty was signed in 1960 and it is limited to the river water management and its usage, and it does not incorporate the contemporary issues like climate change and global warming. And the last one is the limited role of World Bank. This treaty is mediated by World Bank, and the World Bank, though a guarantor, relies on the reports that are submitted by respective countries, and it does not have any mechanism to ensure what exactly the issue is. These are the broad issues which are associated with Indus Water Treaty. Now, after discussing these issues, you must be thinking that why India is still adhering to the provisions of Indus Water Treaty and why we are not opting out of this particular treaty. We will quickly go through the reasons why India should not opt out of the Indus Water Treaty. The first reason is there is no unilateral exit clause under the Indus Water Treaty, so we cannot do it alone. The second reason is it will cause human rights violation as water and sanitation is considered as basic human right by United Nations, and UN has brought many conventions regarding the same. So it is not possible for us to opt out of the treaty. The third reason is withdrawal from the Indus Water Treaty will generate a ripple effect and anxiety among the lower riparian states such as Bangladesh. If India is opting out of this treaty and impacting the interest of lower riparian states, then the other states like Bangladesh, Myanmar will also be anxious that India will someday exit from the river water treaties with these countries. and it will compromise India's credibility as a responsible upper riparian state. And the last one is it will have effect on India's demand of hydro data from China. China can refuse to share the data related to Brahmaputra river, which can create issues for Indian states in case the flow of water is high. Now, what can be the way forward to these particular issues? The first one is internationalizing India's position. India has only utilized 93% of the storage capacity under the treaty and 25% of the water generation capacity, which highlights India's credential as generous upper riparian state. Hence, we need to put our stand at international stage. The second point is renegotiation of treaty to accommodate the challenges with respect to climate and other emerging issues. The third one is seeking cooperation. The provisions of treaty provides the scope for joint studies and joint research which can be utilized to ensure cooperation between the countries. The fourth one is relationality over rationality. The focus should be on relationality, which means benefit sharing rather than imposing restrictions, as it will give due importance to minor issues like soil erosion, water quality, etc. The fifth one is we need to change our approach. As water plays an important role in everyday's life, we need to change our approach to focus on sub-basin level, which will not only make the use of existing hydrology mechanism, but will also cater the socio-economic impact of the same. The sixth point is contemporary laws. Both India and Pakistan can make the active use of contemporary laws like Helsinki Rule, which provide for the international guideline asserting the rights of all bordering nations to have equitable share of water resource. And the last point, which was mentioned in today's article, reconciling the divergent approach, which can be sought with the help of equitable and reasonable utilization and no harm principle, which will help in reducing the tension between the two countries and improving the bilateral relations. A quick recap to our discussion. First of all, we have discussed the context and its relevance for General Studies Paper 2. We have seen the recent developments with respect to Indus Water Treaty and the issues with respect to this particular treaty. We have also discussed why India should not opt out of the Indus Water Treaty and a way forward. Moving on to the next topic of today's discussion, which is based on this news which featured at page number 6 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the right of the persons with disability. And the context of this article is that a case of reservation in promotion for persons with disability is pending in Supreme Court for many years, which is equated with the denial of justice. It is an important issue which is directly impacting the fundamental rights of a certain section of society, and it is relevant for General Studies Paper 2, under which the welfare scheme for vulnerable sections, the laws, institutions and mechanism for their protection and betterment of those vulnerable sections is mentioned. And in 2017, UPSC directly asked a question on Right of Persons with Disability Act 2016, which makes this area important for our discussion. Today we will try to focus on the provisions of Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016 and the common challenges for the persons with disability. So first of all, we will discuss the provisions of Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016. It defines a person with disability with a long-term physical, mental, intellectual or sensory impairments which hinders full and effective participation in society equally with others. So, it defines the disability in the Act. Further, the rights and entitlements responsibility has been cast upon the appropriate government to take effective measures to ensure that the persons with disability enjoy their rights equally with others. And it also includes a provision of reservation for education and government jobs. And the fourth one is related to education. It says every child with a benchmark disability between the age group of 6 to 18 years shall have the right to free education. Government funded educational institutions as well as government recognized institutions will have to provide inclusive education to children with disability. And the next provision is related to the accessibility in public spaces. To strengthen the vision of India's Prime Minister regarding Accessible India campaign, the stress has been given to ensure the accessibility in public buildings, both government and private, in prescribed time frame. And it also includes a provision of central and state advisory boards on disability which needs to be set up to serve as the apex policy making bodies at central and state level. And it also includes penalties for the offences which are committed against the persons with disability and for the violation of the provisions of this particular act. So, in this particular slide, we have discussed the provisions under Right of Persons with Disability Act 2016. Now we will go through the common challenges which the persons with disability face. The first one is differently abled children are subjected to ugly forms of discrimination. Due to the stigma attached with disabilities, families become victims of discrimination and human right abuse. The differently abled children are often kept in homes which eventually denies their fundamental rights such as right of mobility, education and employment, and they are viewed as dependent persons. The next one is denial of disability. Predominantly in the cases of mental or intellectual disability, the family members are often reluctant to accept that particular phenomena. And the stigma which is attached to such disabilities makes them hide the fact of having disabled or challenged member at home, which ultimately leads to social isolation and restrictive behaviors. So, it is an important challenge which is being faced by persons with special abilities. The third one is physical restraints. The superstitions which are prevailing in the society plays a major role in subjecting people with disability to various harmful treatments. The black magicians, quacks, physically hurt people and subject them to ill treatment. It is also an important challenge. The next one is social boycott. We often witness the instances of preventing people with disability from participating in social events. Even the differently abled family members often tend to avoid the social gatherings in a fear that someone would ask about their family member with disability. Hence, they often face the challenge of social boycott. The next one is denial of property rights. As per Indian laws, all the members in the family are eligible to get their share of inherited property, but the persons with disability are denied these rights. And the siblings often take the responsibility for providing care, and they would enjoy the property meant for the person with a disability. It is also an important issue. The next one is decreased marital life prospects. In India, most of the times, elders arrange the marriages. Let us suppose a family has a person with a disability, and in that case, to find a girl or boy for marriage is almost next to impossible because of the stigma attached to disability. And next one is the women with disabilities. Due to the differential gender-based roles, education is not considered as a priority for disabled girls. Dropout rates for disabled girls are higher than the disabled boys. And unfortunately, a girl child with a disability is seen as a lifelong burden on the family because marriage is also not an option for them. And lastly, lack of investment in developing alternative schools for disabled. And due to that, their future prospects are also not very promising. And in order to provide relief to the people who are suffering from disability, government has taken up many initiatives such as Accessible India campaign, which is a centrally sponsored scheme by Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disability. And it is a nationwide campaign to provide universal accessibility to persons with disability. And with this information, we will conclude our session for the day. Thank you for watching today's DNS. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions, which will enhance your understanding regarding the various topics which are appearing in everyday's newspaper.